2 men in the bell tower dead in an instant, their necks wrenched backward, the skin of a third man shrunken as if fire had licked it. And in the air, the smell of sulfur. It happened inside a church on a Sunday morning in front of an entire terrified congregation. The question we've been unable to answer for nearly 5 centuries is this: what really entered the Church of St. Mary's in Bungay on the 4th of August, 1577? Because what people said they saw was not a lightning strike, not a fire, not an accident. It was a dog. An enormous black dog. And wait, because the strangest part isn't what happened that day in Bungay. The strangest part is what, according to the accounts, happened barely hours later, 19 kilometers away. Let's take it step by step. We're in the county of Suffolk in eastern England, in the middle of the reign of Elizabeth I. Bungay is a small market town on the border between Suffolk and Norfolk. Timber houses, thatched roofs, a world where a single spark could level half the town. That Sunday between 9 and 10 in the morning, with the church full of worshippers, a storm broke. And not just any storm. The parish account book itself, a contemporary document, not a later legend, described it in these words: a great, terrible and fearful tempest, with such darkness, rain, hail, thunder and lightning as had never been seen before. Burn this detail into your mind. Whoever wrote it was there, or spoke to those who were. This is not folklore, it's an official record of the time. The church went dark in the middle of the day. And then, according to the accounts, the impossible happened. The church was plunged into darkness, and suddenly a black dog, or the devil in such a shape, appeared before the terrified congregation. This is where the case stops being a storm and becomes something far harder to explain. Because we don't just have the town's memory, we have a document with a name attached. Soon after the event, a Puritan clergyman named Abraham Fleming published a pamphlet. A text that today sounds like a tabloid headline, but that in 1577 was, in practice, the report of the event. The title says it all: a strange and terrible wonder wrought very late in the parish church of Bungay, a town not far from the city of Norwich, namely the 4th of this August, in the year of our Lord 1577, in a great tempest of violent rain, lightning and thunder, as has seldom been seen. And what Fleming describes inside that church is what has fed fear for 4 centuries. According to his account, the creature ran the length of the church at full speed, cut between 2 people who were kneeling in prayer, and in that very instant, it passed between 2 people kneeling in prayer and wrung both their necks backward, so that, in the very spot where they knelt, they died in a strange manner. 2 dead. On the spot, apparently without anyone touching a thing. And it doesn't end there. The text adds a 3rd man who survived but marked. It said the dog attacked another man, leaving his skin shrunken as if it had been burned, though he survived. Think about that for a second. Skin shrunken as if burned. Necks broken, all of it told as the work of a dog that appears and vanishes. Now then, before we let the terror sweep us away, let's do what this channel does: separate what's documented from what's legend. Because when you check the coldest records, the concrete facts change tone. The parish account book, the most reliable source we have, doesn't speak of a monster biting worshippers everywhere. It records something else. It records that the church suffered damage, that the tower was struck by lightning, and that the clock was smashed to pieces. And it mentions, with chilling restraint, that the tower was struck by lightning and the church clock was broken to pieces. And although there's no official record of the injured, the church warden's account book states that 2 men died. 2 men dead. That is historical. It's written down. But here comes the detail that the people of St. Mary's own church still struggle to reconcile today. And it's a detail that, the more you look at it, the less it fits. The most obvious rational explanation would be this: in the middle of the storm, a real dog, perhaps rabid or driven mad by the thunder, slipped into the church and attacked. End of mystery. The problem is where the bodies were found. According to the parish itself, the dead were not lying in the central aisle, nor near the door an animal would have come through. They were up high, in the bell tower. And as they themselves point out, those who try to explain the events tend to suggest that a real dog entered the church and, rabid or driven mad by the storm, attacked the congregation, yet only men who were in the bell tower died, and a real dog would have found it hard to climb the narrow stairs or ladder up to that area. There's the crack. The rabid dog theory explains the panic, but it doesn't explain how two men ended up dead at the top of a tower a dog could hardly have climbed. And if it wasn't a dog, what wrenched those necks backward? Hold on to that question, because the case still has a second act, and it's even harder to swallow, because that very same day, that 4th of August, 1577, the same creature, or something identical, is said to have appeared again. Not in Bungay, some 19 kilometers away, at Holy Trinity Church in Blythburgh. There, the account repeats itself almost exactly. On the 4th of August, 1577, in Blythburgh, Black Shuck is said to have burst through the church doors on a clap of thunder. It ran down the nave, passed by a large congregation, killed a man and a boy, and caused the church spire to crash through the roof. And this is where Blythburgh holds something Bungay doesn't. Physical evidence, or what people have called physical evidence for centuries. On the door of that church there are marks, dark marks, scorched into the wood. And they're known by a name that says it all. The creature's heat was so intense, it burned claw marks into the north door. Those marks are still there today and are shown to visitors as proof of the legend. Notice the quotation marks, proof, in quotes, because no one has ever proven those marks were made by an animal. Most likely, the skeptics say, they're scorch marks from lightning or simply the passing of time. But there they are, and people still touch them. So let's go back to the question we started with, what really entered those churches? Let's be honest, which is what's called for here. There are 3 ways to look at this. The first, the natural explanation. That 4th of August, there was a brutal, documented electrical storm that struck both churches. A lightning bolt could have killed the men in the Bungay bell tower, which would explain why they were up there, beside the bells. The highest and most exposed point could have marked the skin of a survivor with the current, and could have burned the Blythburgh door. The dog would be the way a 16th century mind named a horror it couldn't understand. The second, the interpretation of the era itself. For Abraham Fleming and many of his contemporaries, this was not physics. It was punishment. The Puritan clergyman Abraham Fleming wrote a lengthy pamphlet in which he rationalized the incident as a providential judgment against moral decay, kindled by the fire of our iniquities. To him, the dog was the devil, and the devil had come to collect the sins of the town. And the third, the one that refuses to die. The legend of Black Shuck, the spectral black dog of eastern England, the hound of hell that, it's said, still roams the roads of Suffolk and Norfolk. What we know for certain is very little and very sober. There was an enormous storm, there was damage to 2 churches, and there were deaths. The rest, the dog, the sulphur, the necks broken backward, lives in a pamphlet from 1577, and in the memory of a town that has never wanted to let it go. Bungay hasn't let it go either. The black dog is still on the town's coat of arms, on its weather vane, on the walls of its buildings. And perhaps that's the most unsettling detail of all. That 4.5 centuries later, with all the science in the world, we still can't say for certain what killed 2 men at the top of a bell tower that Sunday morning. We only know that whatever entered did not leave by the same door it had forced.